Alright guys, this is the American Foot Channel where we discuss all things US men's national team and world football, all kinds of stuff. If you like what I'm doing here, like and subscribe, like these videos so other people could see it, subscribe, but keep doing more. Anyways, today we're going to discuss the 2026 FIFA World Cup host cities. For those of you who don't know, the 2026 World Cup is going to be hosted by those three countries who are Canada, United States, and Mexico. But today we're only going to focus on the American cities because I'm American, I live here, I've never been to Canada, and I don't know much about the Mexican cities, so you guys could go watch other people for that, but we're just going to talk about the US ones. And let's get started. Like I said, we're only discussing the American cities. Like I said, I don't know too much about Mexico or Canada. I really, honestly, I don't think we should have done the shared bid with them. I think we more could have handled it, more than enough could have handled it. Just us, the U.S. We had several cities with several big stadiums, a lot of good infrastructure, but it's a joint bid. What can we do about it? So the U.S. only actually gets 11 cities in this, which, like I said, for me, it's unfortunate. I wish we could have got it just us. We'd have more options. It would have been great. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. We're just getting the 11. But anyways, just a quick rundown of the cities. We got Seattle, we got the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, Denver, Kansas City, um, Dallas, Houston, also in Texas, Cincinnati, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, Boston, New York, New Jersey, joint city bid kind of thing, Philadelphia, and Washington and Baltimore, which also joint city bid thing. So let's see here. Here we're just going to talk about the cities that I think should be host cities for the FIFA World Cup. So this is just my opinion. If you guys think other cities should be, let me know down in the comments. Let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm an idiot, if I don't know shit. Let me know. But anyways, let's get started. So the first one is the New York, New Jersey bid, which is going to be at MetLife Stadium, which has a capacity of 82,500. It could be expanded to 88,000, which is what I've read. And I think this is an obvious inclusion. Like, why the hell not? Like, this is New York City. It's one of the most, if not the most international city in the world. There's people from all kinds of places in the world. I mean, New York is just a hotbed for all kinds of cultures, all kinds of stuff. Just absolutely beautiful. So many people from everywhere. I mean, just walk down a street in Manhattan, you're going to hear all kinds of languages. It's really, really nice. Like I said, there's people from all kinds of places around the world and all walks of life. It's just, there's so much going on there. And also, New York also hosted matches in 1994 for that World Cup. They were actually held at the old Giants Stadium, and they absolutely should do it again, and they will. I mean, there's no way they're going to leave New York out of this. And like I said, the MetLife Stadium is actually in New Jersey, but it's very close to New York. It's really not going to make too much of a difference. You could go there. There's a lot of public transportation towards that way, and like it's just close enough to New York City. No one's really going to bat an eye. No one's going to care. And it really seems that like this is potentially one of the venues that could host a final. I think it should really be considered. It's really an awesome venue, and maybe the capacity might affect it a little bit, but definitely a place that could host the final of the World Cup. And then the next one is Philadelphia. We got the Lincoln Financial Field, which would be the host actually. That one has 69,000 capacity, and it is a great stadium. From what it looks like, I've never been in that stadium before, but it looks great. It looks fantastic. And Philadelphia itself is actually a very important city to our country, and it always has been. And I think it's going to be an awesome place to host World Cups there in the East Coast. And I mean, like, you could also take pictures with the Rocky statue. Like, why the heck wouldn't you? Like, you kind of have to do that if you're in Philly, man. Like, come on, Rocky Balboa, he's awesome. Sylvester Stallone, shout out, awesome guy. But I mean, like, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, just there's so much there. There's so much history in that city. It's just such a great American city, just classic. And also a little bit of history for y'all that didn't know. At some point, Philly was also the U.S. capital for the United States just during a while. I believe during the Civil War. There's a little bit of history that I know, but yeah, they were the capital for a brief time of the United States of America. And speaking of capitals, we got the Washington D.C. Baltimore bid. This is at the M&T Bank Stadium, which is in Baltimore, actually, not in Washington D.C. And just honestly, like, how can we not have our country's capital be a host? Like, is our country's capital? Well, the issue here is that it's a shared bid with Baltimore, who's a city. I believe Baltimore is like 30 minutes away from D.C. It's pretty close. It's close enough, but Baltimore is unfortunately a city that seems to have a lot of issues. Um, I just I would have rather had this just be a straight DC bid, but there's not really too many options of stadiums in actual DC. And I mean, like, I'm assuming most of the celebrations, most of the FIFA stuff that they do will be in Washington D.C. And like, honestly, like, Washington D.C. is actually a great place. It's got a lot of historical value. There's a lot of museums, a lot of things to do. It's really nice to walk around. Very walkable, very clean city, and just like beautiful architecture, like you see a lot on the East Coast. And the M&T Stadium is a little over 70,000 capacity, but honestly, it isn't anything too special. It's the Baltimore Ravens home, NFL team. But like I said, I'm not a big fan of the joint bid with Baltimore, but it is technically still our nation's capital with DC in it, and I think it should be in. I am a little iffy about it, but I think I think it should be in there just because, like I said, it's our nation's capital, and that that means a lot. And yeah, I think that's why this one should be in it. And then we have Miami, Florida. They got the Hard Rock Stadium, and the stadium has 64,000 capacity, and it's a very nice stadium. It's hosted a few football matches before. I know there was a Real Madrid Barcelona friendly that was played there, and this stadium actually was built in 1985, but it did go a massive, massive makeover, and it's unrecognizable now from that original stadium. And I think it looks very nice. It looks like a really proper stadium, and like I said, and New York might actually be the most international city out there, but Miami sure does give it a run for its money. There's many people there from all over the world, and it's just like such a desirable destination for people to go. And I think people like tourists are gonna love being there in Miami. And this city even now has its own MLS team with Inter Miami, and they like it. They like football out there. And it's just a very fun and lively city, and there's just so much to do. And for that reason, for those reasons at least, I think it should be a good host city, and it really should host games for this World Cup. And next we got Atlanta, Georgia, which I think should host because it has the wonderful Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which has a 71,000 capacity and possibly even more. This is one of the cities that's on here that I've never been to personally, so I can't talk too much about it. But like, honestly, this city has shown like such great support for the sport. Seriously, it is seriously amazing. You guys in Atlanta are freaking awesome. Ever since Atlanta United joined MLS, they've been just smashing attendance records, and I think that they should be rewarded for that. They really, I mean, if Seattle was there to to improve like MLS and like attendances and show what you can do, I mean, Atlanta, oh my gosh, dude. Like I said, they definitely people there are definitely very supportive, and they care about the sport. And I mean, they've showed it with the numbers. Like, just numbers are there, and I really think this place deserves it. And we've even seen like the Mexican national team go there before and show that they could bring good attendance records as well. Um, I definitely think that Atlanta should host. Like, it's a must, and that stadium is awesome. It has some turf that's not very nice, but that's something they could easily work on. And I think they'll do it, and I think they absolutely deserve to be one of the host cities. Then we got Nashville, Tennessee. Nissan Stadium, 69,000 in capacity. Expandable 75,000, which is quite a lot. Once again, I've never been in Nashville, but out of what I've seen and heard, I feel like this city is what most people around the world imagine the United States being like. It's a city with a lot of culture and personality. I've heard it has some great barbecue and music, by the way, which I'd love to go there. I'm going to go there at some point. Check that out. Nashville Soccer Club is their MLS team, and they recently opened their new stadium, the Geodis Park, but unfortunately, it doesn't meet the capacity requirements for the World Cup, so it would have to be at the Nissan Stadium, which is Tennessee Titans Stadium. Honestly, it's not as visually pleasing of a stadium, but I think it'll do the job, and just city of Nashville more than makes up for what that stadium lacks. And then we have Dallas. They have the massive AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play, uh, and it's 80,000 in capacity, but it's expandable to 105, even more maybe. That's massive, dude. This is a heck of a stadium. I remember when it first opened. It's just awesome. And it's outside of Dallas. I believe it's like 30 minutes away in Arlington, like in a suburb, which is not ideal, but I'm sure people will find their way there. Uh, Honestly, like this stadium is like I've heard that it could potentially host a final. It's just so big, it's spectacular, and like Dallas is also just an important city in this country. But the thing about Dallas is they're definitely all about their American football. They seem to like that a lot more than soccer, than our football. They don't seem to show as much support for it, but I still think it's a great place to host. I think it should, and I think this is a great place to have the World Cup. I mean, Texas is so big and such an important state. It should at least have one city hosting. And in terms of not being like the biggest in the following of the sport, they've still had some awesome talents come out of the FC Dallas Academy, like Ricardo Pepi, Weston McKennie, and Jesus Ferreira. So I definitely think that Dallas should host. And then we got Denver, Colorado. They got the Empower Field at Mile High, which is a mouthful. Stadium with a little over 76,000 in capacity. Really big and nice stadium. It actually hosted the Nations League final, and that final was cracking, dude. And the atmosphere was awesome. I think this spot's really important too because it's in the middle of the country, and I think it's nice to be able to have that more like central venue instead of just having these like all these games take place exclusively like in more coastal areas, like except for Dallas, which is not coastal at all. I think it'll connect very nicely, and it'd be kind of nice to have like some games in some landlocked areas just to give us a little bit of diversity. And you got the Rocky Mountains and all that. Really nice place up there in Colorado. And then we also have Seattle, Washington, which would be hosting with the Lumen Field, who has a capacity of 69,000, expandable to 72,000. And Washington and Seattle have shown great support for the Sounders and the U.S. men's national team. And I mean, just like you have to look at the turnout for the CONCACAF Champions League final recently, a few weeks ago, and it's just they're awesome up there, man. Like Seattle always shows up, and Lumen Field is just an awesome venue, which unfortunately has that synthetic grass, but I think that's something like that we could do something about. Um, Personally, like I think it's just such a nice place. Like there's so much to do in Seattle and the surrounding area. It's beautiful, and just like it's only a few ways from the potential Canadian host city, Vancouver, which I think is great. You could literally drive from one to the other, so that'll work out. Like I said, it's beautiful. There's a lot to do, but unfortunately, the city is a little rough with some issues like homelessness and crime. But I think they could make it work, and I think Seattle's a great place to host. I really do. The stadium, like I said, is awesome. Like I really like Seattle. Just a few issues, but I think they could really be great hosts for this World Cup. And next we have the San Francisco Bay Area here in California, and the host stadium for that would be Levi Stadium, which is at 68,000 capacity, expandable to 75,000. And with this one, I might be a little biased because this is where I live. Like I live in the Bay Area, but I really do think that the Bay Area has to host some games just like they did in 1994. Palo Alto's Stanford Stadium was the host, the old Stanford Stadium, but this time, like I said, it would be the Levi Stadium, which is actually located in Santa Clara, California, which is about, I'd say, like 45 minutes from San Francisco. It just doesn't sound as sexy as San Francisco or saying Bay Area, so that's what they're calling the bid the San Francisco Bay Area bid. But I'm sure they're gonna do a lot of celebrations in like all the cities around there, like some FIFA stuff. Um, I think, I think like this is like, I think this has to be in the World Cup. Like it has to be. I really hope so because, like I said, I'm from here, and like we have a pretty close big city to the stadium, which is San Jose, which is my hometown. That's definitely the biggest nearest like the nearest big city to Santa Clara. It's literally next door, and like I said, it would host a lot of festivities just like San Francisco would. And honestly, Levi's isn't the fanciest stadium out there, but I do like it, and I think it's worthy of hosting World Cup games. And also reminds me a little bit of the Boca Juniors Stadium, La Bombonera, but just in red. Similarities there. And just the Bay Area is like so diverse and has so many fans of the sport, like from all over the world, like, and we could just hold so many events here. Like, it's such a big place, and but unfortunately, the Bay Area does have some similar issues to Seattle, like with the, like I said, homelessness and crime. But it's some things that could be improved on, and also just saying we have three pretty big airports here, so people could arrive on those three airports. So I'm just saying it'd be a good option. Why the heck not, Bay Area? Come on, let's do it. And the last host that I think should host the World Cup, and this is a given. This is definitely going to be a host. Is LA, LA, California, Los Angeles, the City of Angels. They got two stadiums though that they're trying to use, or that they want to use at least one of them. One of them being the Rose Bowl with 92,000 capacity, and then SoFi Stadium, which has 70,000, but it's expandable to 100,000, which is quite a lot. And like I said, LA just has to be. It's a lock, just like New York City to host, and it's just such a big international city. I mean, like honestly, like SoCal, some things that I don't like about it, but there's no denying how huge and important it is, like cultural wise. Like every game here will be cracking, I guarantee you. And there's gonna be some great atmosphere here. I mean, you can see some of the atmosphere that LAFC brings, and even the Galaxy has good attendance numbers, and it gets cracking, man. Especially when those two play each other, like oh my gosh. And it's the place where all the shallow Hollywood stars live, and you bet your ass they're gonna be all over social media posting about how they're at the World Cup game. It's just gonna blow up, like it's just massive, and LA has a lot to offer to a tournament like this. And I mean, just the issues, like which stadium will it be? Like I'd personally go with SoFi Stadium. I mean, it's a brand new state of the art technological masterpiece. Like it'd be crazy not to go with a stadium like that. But one issue that it does have is the field dimensions aren't up to par with the FIFA standards, and that's something that I think could be fixed. Honestly, like it's not a big issue. Like after all, we're America, so we could fix this shit. And then we have the Rose Bowl, which is an important stadium here in America, like very historic, lots of history, and it even hosted the 1994 final, which is a really big deal. But the issue is that it's very outdated and an old stadium, and it would really need some real like renovation to become worthy of hosting like a World Cup in these modern times. And it's also the stadium, like both of them honestly are like about half an hour away from LA. But Pasadena is a little bit more of a hassle, which is where the Rose Bowl's at. It's like, I mean, it's just like the parking situation is a little weird. It's like literally a grass field like outside the stadium. It's really difficult to get out of, which I'm sure they'd have to pave it if they want to host a final. Because, yeah, that's just not gonna do it. But with that being said, I really wouldn't be that mad if there was games there at the Rose Bowl. But it would be nice to have SoFi as a host, honestly. And now I'm gonna talk about the places that didn't make my cut. And Boston, the Gillette Stadium, it's awesome, but it's hard to get out to the stadium, which is actually in Foxborough, and not a lot of people, like a lot of people that aren't from here, they're gonna struggle getting out there. And plus, we already have three picks for the West Coast, so I don't know about that. It was a little hard leaving it out, but I don't think it should make it. Then Cincinnati, I've never been there. Looks like a great city, but the Paul Brown Stadium is honestly just ugly and old. And I don't really see FIFA wanting that as a part of their World Cup. So I'm sorry, Cincinnati. It's true. It's just the truth that I'm speaking. But they got the FC Cincinnati Stadium, which is awesome. It's a beautiful stadium, and I really like it. But unfortunately, it's much too small for a FIFA World Cup, so we can't have that. Then we have Orlando. We had to leave this one. It was hard to leave this one off, but it's just like it's such a big tourist hub, and I mean, so they're so used to getting people down there. But we already have Miami for Florida, and honestly, like the Camping World Stadium kind of sucks. Like I don't. It's old, like the Paul Brown Stadium, and not very nice looking. And they're used to getting tourists from like Disneyland for Disney World and all that. Like they are used to getting that, so it's already kind of built for that. But I don't know. I just wouldn't include Orlando. And then we have Kansas City, who they can't make it because of their stadium as well. It's just old and just not very appealing. Honestly, I do wish like we had more places, but like I said, we have to share with Mexico and Canada, which would have been nice to give Kansas City, despite their stadium situation, like some games, but because they would serve a similar role to Colorado as being in the middle of the country. But this time, I mean, I'm gonna give it to the Rocky City to host instead. And now we have the last one is Houston, which was honestly the hardest for me to give up. But it was either between them and Seattle, and I prefer Seattle honestly. The NRG Stadium is huge and nice looking, but I'd rather have Dallas as the Texas host. But I think honestly, Houston will most likely get some games at the end. Whatever FIFA chooses. Like, I'm just talking out of my ass, but I do think they will get some games in the end. But it's just like we'll see. Like I said, you guys, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. If I'm absolutely wrong, what cities you think should be in this. Like, this is just my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, which cities they believe. Some of you might live in some of these cities. You might prefer these cities over some of the ones that I named. I don't know, but anyways, you guys, like I said, subscribe and like. If you like what you're seeing here, keep doing more of these videos, and y'all have a good one.